Hi, everyone. As you may know, April is National Humor Month. Now, I don't generally consider art or art history to necessarily be a funny topic, though they can often bring us a lot of joy. But when I was thinking about art that contained elements of humor, I had a revelation because right now we are getting to see an extremely humorous side of the art world. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about this with you today. So, while many museums are currently closed to the public, that doesn't mean that we can't engage with famous works of art in creative ways. Some people are spending time looking at art online, even through virtual museum tours. Some people are creating their own paintings and drawings with their newfound free time. And then there's the people that we're going to talk about today who are actually recreating famous works of art through photography. In March, the Getty Museum in Los Angeles called on its online followers to recreate famous works of art using household items. And, well, the internet responded in droves. This challenge broadened out beyond the Getty Museum to people recreating famous art from around the world. The best place to see a whole bunch of these pictures and submissions is on Instagram under the hashtag Between Art and Quarantine. So that is what we're going to talk about today. All right. So while there are a lot of really lovely and earnest art recreations, like the one we're looking at here, we're not going to focus on those today. We're actually going to focus on the ones that have an element of humor to them. But I wanted to show you an example of the type of work we're talking about here. So you can see the original painting on the left by an artist named Christian Scho, and on the right, a woman who has laid herself in the same position and put flowers in her hair to recreate the style of that original painting. So let's look at some of our humorous examples. So the first category we're going to talk about are people who used food to recreate the original work. So here we're looking at an example of, on the top, the original painting by Vincent van Gogh, and on the bottom, a person who has recreated this painting using rice and popcorn and tea towels and maybe some potatoes at the bottom. Next, we have a woman who made pizza inspired by Mondrian's famous art. So you can see she's used the red of the tomatoes, white cheese, yellow, maybe pears or peppers, black olives, got very creative with it. I think the blue is probably just a piece of paper, not something she might want to eat, but that's up to her. This is one of my favorite food painting recreations. Girl with a Pearl Earring by Vermeer is one of the paintings you will see recreated a lot if you look up this challenge. And most people use themselves as the model and put on a blue headscarf and a big earring and pose in the same way. But this artist decided instead to recreate the girl with the pearl earring out of bread, salami, peppers, Triscuits, banana peel, pasta, and carrot shavings. It's very creative, and it has just a very funny effect when you look at it. The next category of funny pictures I wanted to show you was people who use details from the coronavirus that we're dealing with right now to enhance the comedic effect of their picture recreation. So that can include people who use toilet paper, gloves, masks, and even social distancing as a comedic element in their picture. This one is one of my favorite, one of the most well done pictures. So on the left, we have an original painting called Woman with Gloves by Rembrandt. You can see it's very detailed, very lovely. And on the right, we have a woman who posed herself in the same position, but used nearly empty toilet paper rolls instead of the neck piece. And in her hands, if you look carefully, you can see she is holding like surgical type rubber gloves instead of those fancy lace gloves we see in the original painting. Also, if you look carefully right about here, um, that is like the covering that you might find on an Asian pear or on a sensitive piece of fruit in the grocery store that they put on there to keep it from bruising. So this woman got very creative with her household items in recreating this picture. This is another example of someone who used toilet paper to make the effect funnier. So on the left, we have a picture by Caravaggio of a young man holding a basket full of really lovely fruit and leaves. And on the right, this man imitated the basket, got the leaves, but instead of fruit, he's got his big bounty of toilet paper, which we all know has been a bit of a challenge to come across during this pandemic. You can go into stores now in the middle of the day and still see empty shelves of toilet paper. An example that combined a little bit of everything is this one here. We have on the left a portrait of Marc de Villiers by Jacques Aved, and on the right, a woman who found a pretty similar looking robe. Looks nice, but she has made sure to put on her gloves, her mask, has her Windex in her hand ready to clean, and instead of a powdered wig, she's got a wig full of toilet paper. I think this is probably one of the most clever pictures I saw in this whole challenge. And this is really representing that idea of social distancing. So up at the top, we have a very famous picture by Georges Seurat called Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. And it is full of life and people and animals and just like a lovely day of everyone enjoying their time outside together. And in order to recreate it in a way that is kind of authentic to the time that we're living in right now, this woman at the bottom looks like maybe she went into her backyard and there's no one there because, you know, right now we have to be standing a little apart from everyone. If you look carefully at the bottom of the picture too, you can see that the animals she has with her are stuffed. So she has like a stuffed dog and a stuffed monkey. And she even stuffed her skirt to look like the painting on top. So I think this one is so clever and so funny. Let's look at another. This one, this artist took it in a really different direction. And I think I laughed so hard when I first saw this one because most of them, the people have really tried to get the look exactly. They have recreated the original paintings with people and animals and clothing and details. And this person didn't really try to do that. She wanted to get the essence of this painting. So on the bottom, we see a painting called Noon, Rest from Work by Vincent van Gogh. And it's of two workers laying down in a field of hay after a hard day of work. And they're wearing all blue, like denim probably. And behind them, the hay is all yellow and we have the blue sky. So this artist who, to recreate this picture, used surgical masks that were blue to represent the two figures. So you can see here and here, those line up with these two figures here. And then she's used the yellow, the beige of the couch and the yellow of the gloves to represent the hay, some disinfecting wipes to represent this pile here, and a package of quilted northern toilet paper to represent the blue sky. So I think that Van Gogh would approve of this recreation because he too sometimes liked to just represent the essence of things. Um, and this did it. You know, you look at the two paintings together and you know that they're meant to be, that the top one is meant to be a copy of the bottom, even though it's lacking all those details that you would expect. I think even the curve of the loop of the mask strap is meant to represent the way that this man has folded his arms around his head, which is just an extra layer of cleverness that I really appreciate. So another way that people added a humorous element to their painting recreations is by using their pets or toys around their house, to get animals or to recreate people or to just add an element of humor to the picture. So we're going to look at a couple of examples of those. This one combines both. It has both a pet and some toys in it. So on the right, we have a lovely picture by Raphael called Saint George and the Dragon. And it is of a man in armor on top of a horse slaying a dragon with a large pole. And on the left, we have a dog in a hoodie, meant to be the man in armor, riding like a carousel horse, um, stabbing a toy dragon with a rolled up piece of maybe craft paper or something like that. So this artist got really creative in finding what they had around their house to recreate a gorgeous and detailed painting. And they got a lot of details in there without um, having to put too much work into it. And I think it's so funny to see the dog holding that position of the man in the armor. Here's one that's focused more on toys and household goods. On the top, we have a painting by Viktor Kuznetsov. He's a Russian artist. And we have three men in armor on their horses, all pretty gilded, looking like they're ready to go off to battle. And on the bottom, we have three friends, maybe roommates, who found items around their house that could get them the same essence. So on the left, we have a man riding some sort of yellow horse toy. In the middle, the woman has a pink sort of horse head attached to a stick, like a little kid might ride. I think the other stick she's holding is probably a sweeper, squeegee type thing. This person here is riding maybe even just like a stuffed pillow or a beanbag. This woman's got foil for her hat, so does he. Actually, I think they're probably all women, but you can't even tell because they've put so much work into these costumes. Even though it looks a little ridiculous, they have gotten the effect quite well of the painting up above. You can't not laugh at this one. So this we know is a very famous sculpture by Rodin called The Thinker. And there are many versions of this sculpture out in the world made of different materials. But this sort of white marble version was imitated quite well by a puppy stuffed into a sweatshirt. And then the human's hand is providing the thinker's hand here. And it is so cute. This is a painting called Napoleon Crossing the Alps. And again, the artist who recreated it here found blankets and hats and toys from his house to recreate this very ornate, very regal looking picture of Napoleon. And I wouldn't say he's quite gotten it down, but you get what he's trying to do, and it makes it so funny to watch a grown man look like he's riding a little unicorn toy meant for probably a 3-year-old girl. but he's got the positions of his hands just right where you know that he is imitating Napoleon. I think if you look at the faces of the two horses too, that alone will get you a little laugh. That one looks so scared and this one looks so peaceful. Well, this is an extremely well-known painting, right? This is The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. And I think this one would be an extremely difficult picture to recreate if you were trying to gather that many people with you right now. You'd have to get them all dressed up. And first off, we shouldn't all be standing that close together right now. So this little boy, likely with the help of his parents, accomplished this really successfully and very humorously by using all of his stuffed animals for the other people at the table. So we see the little boy, maybe 5 years old, in the place of Jesus at the center of the table. We see he's got his fake foods, his fake croissant and donut and pie, maybe even fried chicken, meant to serve as the food for the day. And then we've got toy elephants and bears and dogs and alpacas, maybe even a fox, all wrapped up in different pieces of fabric to imitate the look of the people at the Last Supper. And it's so funny because it's so cute to watch a little kid imitating such a large and grandiose and important piece of art. This picture on its own, Andrew Wyeth's Christina's World, would never to me be considered a funny or humorous picture. It's got a really lonely, kind of sad feeling to it, of a woman lying in a field who seems to be struggling to get where she needs to go. But the recreation on the bottom, I think, is so clever because the little girl has used a dollhouse to represent that farmhouse in the original. And so even if the scale of her yard that she's laying in is nowhere close to the size of the field that Christina is laying in at the top, she's gotten that effect by using a much smaller item to represent the house. So it looks like the distance kind of works. And while I hope that this girl is not in any similar situation that Christina is in, I think it makes for a really clever picture, a really clever recreation of the original in this time. So the last category of pictures I think we should look at today are ones that are just so creative in the way that they have recreated the original art. Some art is not easy to reproduce, whether it's abstract art or just incredibly detailed. People had to get very creative in the ways that they come up with to get the effects of the original painting. So we're going to look at several like that. And this is probably some of my favorite pictures that we're going to look at today because I just never would have thought of some of these ideas. So for example, I would never in a million years try to recreate Guernica by Picasso. So that's what we have up at the top. And you can see it is a very detailed, very cubist style of painting. It has a lot of broken up pieces. It's very abstract. And it's complex. There's a lot to it. But the family at the bottom has been so clever about the way that they decided to do it. So we can see the woman kind of in the middle here, probably the mother of the family, representing this face kind of shouting out. This little boy here is this figure with his arms going upward, and they've got the papers to match and the triangles to match. They've cut a piece of paper with a light bulb drawn on it here to represent this. We have the other girl representing another one of the faces in the picture, the boy being the body kind of laying at the bottom of the painting here. We have a stuffed horse used for this animal here. The candle in this hand is a toilet paper roll in this girl's hand. We have a girl over here holding a doll to represent this woman crying with a child in her hands. And this bull up here represented by a stuffed moose and a stuffed dragon down here. So it's just very clever the way that they involve the entire family and a bunch of toys and fabric to recreate this incredibly complex painting by Picasso that is extremely famous in art history. So it was a brave choice to try and replicate. This is a painting at the top called Over the City by Marc Chagall. And in it, you can see that there's two figures sort of floating through the sky, which is a bit of a trademark for Chagall. And they're floating over a town of houses and fences and plants. So how would you recreate that in this day and age? Obviously, we can't fly. It would be very hard to get a scene with a whole bunch of houses. So these two children have recreated the feeling of floating in the air by actually laying on their floor and taking a picture of it from above. And then to get the fences, they've used spoons and forks all lined up at the bottom of their floor. And to represent the houses, they've used books, which I think was a really clever and creative use of their household objects. This one just makes me laugh because it's so silly to have two grown men in beards representing these little cherubic angels, babies. But it's also pretty clever because how would you recreate wings? And so these two men found some cardboard in their apartment and turned them into wings, and then used wigs to kind of get the feeling of babies. Actually, I think it's really just one man who took a picture of himself twice and put it together. So that too was very creative. I am so impressed by this one. I love it. Picasso would never be an easy artist to recreate because he's so out there, right? And how do you turn a smashed, flattened, destructive face? How do you use your own face to accomplish that? So this woman took a picture of herself, but applied a lot of makeup to her face to get the effect. So up here, Picasso is really representing another eye with this part. And instead of trying to use two of her own eyes, she has drawn on that really weird teardrop shaped eye that Picasso has. She's drawn on all those black, strange lines that he has included, but the face that she is making just gets the essence of Picasso's painting perfectly. It looks exactly like a wailing, crying, shouting woman. Both my husband and I laughed really hard when we saw this one because this is not a picture I would ever think to try and imitate. It's just an abstract sculpture. It doesn't even have a title. It's called Untitled by Joel Shapiro. And it is a sculpture on kind of like a boardwalk, it looks like, with the city behind it. And these two people got the background just right. They went to a city with a bit of a boardwalk on it and dressed all in red and posed themselves in the same position as the elements of the sculpture. I don't even think the sculpture is meant to be like a human in any way, but these two got very creative and clever, and even brought a folded up table to serve as their base to represent the base of this statue. It's wonderful. I've seen a lot of recreations of Magritte during this as well. This one is titled The Son of Man, and a lot of people kind of either laid on the ground and put an apple on their head, or maybe dangled an apple from the ceiling with a string. This person didn't do that at all and didn't even find a hat. They went to their kitchen and put a pot on their head and used a bowl, a green bowl, to represent the apple with just a few leaves sticking out. And I think it is so effective and so funny, because it really makes you think about the ways that we can use just the basics in our house to get a look, that it doesn't have to be an apple and a hat for you to know that this was a recreation of a Magritte painting. So that's all we have to look at today. I hope if you enjoyed this, that you can go online and just search the phrase between art and quarantine. I've written it here like a hashtag that you would use to search on Instagram. But even if you go to any search page and type in those words, you will get a bunch of results of people who have used everyday objects and things in their own house to recreate famous and beautiful works of art. Some of them are funny, like the ones we looked at today, and some of them are just impressive and lovely and smart. So I hope if you enjoyed the pictures we looked at today, you'll look up some more, because there are literally thousands of them. I try and look every day and see what's new, because the amount of creativity that people are putting out in the world during this challenging time is so impressive and so wonderful. And I hope you get some joy and laughter out of it. Have a great day.